Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran. It's time to take a look at Subtlety Rogues for patch 9.1. The spec was a dominant force for PvP in Season 1, and in Season 2 it's still continuing to be a dominant force. There have been some changes done to Subtlety to reduce its damage output, and while players freaked out that Subtlety could be weaker than Assassination, it couldn't be further from the truth. Subtlety is still a very dominant spec for PvP, offering crazy amount of control as well as insane opener burst, which is exactly all you need in order to have fun with this spec. So let's take a look at some of the different builds, some of the different setups that you'll need to take a look at when it comes to prepping your Subtlety Rogues for PvP in patch 9.1 Season 2. First thing we take a look at is the gear. The new gear now offers a brand new trinket called Unchained Gladiator Shackles of Malediction. This one is going to be very popular when it comes to arenas. You'll definitely want to snag that one as soon as you can on your Subtlety Rogue. Subtlety can still play up to other trinkets like the badge in order to increase your damage output together with your Shadow Dance, but Shackles of Malediction offers you an extra way to deal with enemies and healers, providing some free damage over time as well as healing absorption effect, which is going to be extra good when it comes to PvP scenarios. Another thing we could take a look at is Legendary, as that has been a pretty massive change for Subtlety going into patch 9.1. Their main legendary Mark of Master Assassin has been nerfed in PvP, so now it lasts only 1.4 seconds within PvP, giving you 100% crit for now, a really short time compared to 4 seconds full of burst. During the 4 seconds, that gave Subtlety more than ample time in order to execute majority of the rotation. By giving them a 1.4 seconds worth of burst, it is much weaker. However, it does not put this legendary as a bad Lego, and majority of sub-rogues are still playing out the Master Assassin, especially if you're not Kyrian Covenant. If you are, however, Kyrian, the new Resounding Clarity is proving itself to be a very popular legendary going for Subtlety Rogues. Echo and Reprimand now anima charges 4 common points, which gives you opportunity to get quite a lot of burst, which will treat all those anima charge common points as if you consumed 7 common points into that finisher, which means really beefy eviscerate damage. Outside of that, Invigorating Shadow Dust is a decent legendary. I actually see quite a few people use it. It's quite good in terms of reducing the cooldown of your abilities, especially useful in 3-3. But if you're someone who does mostly casual PvP, maybe even Battlegrounds, you might even find some value of the Rotten. Even though it's not as busted as it was before, the extra Shadow Strike damage together with a bunch of modifiers could still be really good if you do just love this big, bursty, cheesy opener burst out of your sub-rogue and nothing else. Next, let's take a look at the talents, and we'll take a look at the most popular talents for most sub-rogues. In the first row, Premeditation is fantastic. Enter in Stealth or enter in Shadow Dance, your first Shadow Strike is going to give you free Slice and Dice, which means you almost never have to invest any common points or energy in maintaining your Slice and Dice, which will be great during your burst. Level 25, Night Stalker ends up being the more popular choice. It adds up a little bit extra movement speed while it's low, but mostly for that extra damage, which doesn't really get nerfed in PvP as hard as in a level 45 row. This one just ends up being the staple currently for most sub-rogues. And level 30, Mark for Death is the more popular option, with some players preferring to play Deeper Strat, which I think could be really good in like 2v2 situations where there's less targets for you to control, but Mark for Death is generally a great choice for the versatility of just granting you common points whenever you need them, whether it be for a kidney shot or a powerful eviscerate. In a level 35 row, Elusiveness is just the best option. It provides you an actual defensive that you can use regularly together with the ability of Feint. And this one ends up being quite strong overall for sub-rogues. In level 40, Prey in the Weak, since you are going to be locking everybody down in a stun anyway, being the master of crowd control, you might as well gain some value on it by making players that are stunned by you take 5% more damage. It's 10% in PvE, but 5% in PvP. That 5% with all the other sub-rogue modifiers does go a long way, however. In the level 45 row, Envelop in Shadows is the best if you are going to be doing any actual rated arenas. This gives you extra dance windows in order to be able to blow a dance and just go do as much damage as possible, and also allows your dance to recover a little bit quicker, which can be good when you are trying to set up multiple goes. If you are, however, just having some fun at Battlegrounds and just want to go some weird one-shotty blasting damage, Dark Shadow isn't bad. It's not as good once in PvP though. This is why most rogues go Night Stalker for the actual damage increase, but if you are just looking for that big one-shot or burst, Dark Shadow is still quite fun to play with either way. In the level 50 row, Master of Shadows is a staple choice for rogues, granting you energy whenever you press Shadow Dance or whenever you stealth, so that's going to mean just a smoother energy generation when it comes to your burst situations. For PvP talents, we have a couple options. Shadowy Duel is kind of the staple right now. Lock your target into a duel contained in the shadows, so basically it kind of takes you and whoever you target out of the game so no one can really help them or do much for them, except for a few AoE healing abilities like Spirit Link Totem. Those do bypass it. It is quite hefty in the cost of energy, but if you combine this together with Symbols of Death, it generally ends up canceling each other out. Smoke Bomb is another fantastic talent, which is a 2-minute cooldown for sub rogues in particular. It actually has a shorter cooldown for sub, just because I guess it's sub, since it's more CC heavy, Blizzard decided to give it in 9.1 a bit more CC control. So Smoke Bomb, still same bomb, just at a much shorter CD, and it creates a line of sight where you can kind of, again, like Shadowy Duel, without taking them out of the duel and costing energy, you just create a smoke cloud with line of sight in and out of the smoke bomb to make it harder for your target of choice to get any kind of help and healing. In the last row, there are a couple options. Some of the ones that are really good in arenas is Thick as Thieves. If you're running 3v3, you'll just throw down Trickles of Trade onto your ally who's bursting with you in order to amp up your team damage while you set up the crowd control, which is the specialty of a sub rogue. Dismantle is another great choice if you are having to deal with any melee at all. Now Subtlety actually has a toolkit to deal with melee in order to prevent some of the damage to the output. Maneuverability is fantastic, but sub rogue generally doesn't have too much problem when it comes to mobility, so maneuverability can be used if you are expecting some really heavy slows or constant routes. Thieves Bargain is fun to play with, maybe in PvP casual like in Battlegrounds, because having a short cooldown on Blades as well as Vanish and Faint can be quite nice, even though you do have to make a bargain of doing 10% less damage for 6 seconds when you are using those abilities. But shorter cooldowns can still be pretty good in more casual scenarios. The hardest thing about the Subtlety Rogue playstyle in PvP is being able to lock an enemy down with stuns while also being able to dish out as much damage as possible. In arenas, in Battlegrounds, one of your strongest toolkits is just the amount of crowd control you bring. Not every class just has a stun on demand, and all Subtlety Rogue needs to do is either stun from the opener or press Shadow Dance, which gives you access to Cheap Shot, and you can spam it on any target as much as you want to, which is fantastic. But you also do bring hefty damage. Mostly when it comes to your cooldowns, you are going to have burst damage rather than sustain. So being able to lock somebody down in a stun while also dishing out the most damage to them at the same time is going to be a skill you'll have to learn as a sub rogue. There is no specific openers or rotations that you do have to follow in Shadowlands for sub rogues. There's multiple ways you can go about stunning enemies, using cheap shots, using kidney shots, and practice is going to help you improve on that. Different targets, different ratios might make you want to play slightly differently with your character. Different covenants might give you a slightly different approach of your opener. But generally, you're looking to stun the enemy, not giving them really even moment to breathe, while also dishing out as much damage as best as possible. The closer your stuns are and the less gaps you have between them, the better you will be doing as a sub rogue. One of the simple openers you can use is Mark for Death, Kidney Shot the enemy in the opener. Go into Shadow Dance, Symbols of Death, into Shadow Strike. From there on, you'll continue Shadow Striking the enemy until you have about 4 or 5 common points. And make sure right as the Kidney Shot falls off, follow with a Cheap Shot. And if, let's say, you're in an arena situation where you need just a little bit extra longer CC duration, make sure you also follow up with a Cheap Shot. Another simple opener you can practice in PvP is to open on an enemy with a Cheap Shot, dance with symbols as well as Shadow Strike into an Eviscerate, then Shadow Strike, Cheap Shot, Eviscerate, Cheap Shot, Shadow Strike, Eviscerate. And those are some of the just example openers that you can actually take into Battlegrounds or even arenas and start utilizing yourselves. But the best way to learn Subtlety Rogue is just playing the game, just practicing, knowing how your CC works and finding new ways to lock enemies down. Some classes are going to be easy to lock down and others not really. There might be some ratios or trinkets that players might be using that might make it harder for you to get a proper opener on them, like Relentless Trinkets or the Orc Hardness ratio. But those are the things you'll learn by playing your rogue. I think the best way to learn Subtlety is by examining every one of your CC abilities, how they individually work, and then finding ways to put them together like putting a puzzle, rather than learning strict rotations of how to follow in terms of your opener, because when players follow strict rotations, as soon as the enemy trinkets in between the rotation, usually they lose themselves and they don't have a great way to respond. So better learning how your CC functions, knowing what each individual CC ability does, and practicing it constantly in PvP is probably going to make you a better sub rogue than following a strict rotation would. Thank you guys so much for checking out this video. I do hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you think about Subtlety Rogue in patch 9.1, because this spec has been slapping people quite a bit. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see all of you in the next one.